How do, guys? I just want to talk about RAF Brize Norton quite quickly and what's happened there. Obviously, it's shocking what's happened, and it does show a ridiculous and lackadaisical attitude within the military, which I think comes from the senior ranks and is possibly um, a culture that's been foisted upon them by politicians and civil servants. Like we saw a couple of years ago, where they said they didn't want useless white male pilots. It's um, it's a legacy hangover of that. What I think we're seeing at the moment, with the people actually getting in. Now it is terrible. By the way, I want to be very clear on that. People should not be getting into camps. And my personal view, now I was only a lance corporal in the army, nothing exciting, nothing special. It's my personal view that anybody breaking into a military camp should be shot on sight. It's just that simple. I don't think there should be any ifs, buts, or maybes about that. If you've no reason at all to go into a military site, very sensitive areas with lots of sensitive equipment. Anybody caught breaking in should be deemed a threat to national security and to be dangerous and just shot. That should just be the end of it. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. So when these people are seen going into these places, riding around on these scooters, it should just be bang your shot, or send a jeep after them and run them over. They've got vehicles there, they've got motorized vehicles, run them over. They shouldn't be messing around with these people, and I don't care about the human rights in regard to that, and I don't care about the perceived levels of force being used. It should just be you're dead. In my opinion. Now, why aren't they doing that? I think this comes from civil servants getting involved and lawyers that we've seen over the years. Like the ambulance chasers, where we've seen military personnel abroad doing the jobs, getting into gunfights with the enemy, then being sued for it, because we seem to have an entire industry of lawyers over here who are more intent on protecting our enemies and helping our enemies than they are in doing working for our country, because the greedy people, in my opinion, they may deny that, they may say that they're seeking justice. I just think that's a lot of convenient excuses. Personally, that's my view. But there you go. We're all entitled to our views. So I think some of these lawyers may actually just be enemies of the state as well. I think they may actually harbour loyalties outside of this country. But that's for individuals themselves to decide, I'm afraid. And I've no evidence to back that up, just to be clear, for legal reasons. So we possibly have the guards themselves who are reluctant to do the job and pursue these people for fear of being taken to court and spending time in prison. We're going to have senior officers in the RAF who are very DEI driven, and unfortunately, when you're involved in things like DEI, it does spread into how you think about other things like security and things like that. It's very weird how it spreads into other fields. You end up with very, very warped views on how operations should be run, and I tend to find a lot of people who are into DEI tend to be very, very. They tend to reject all what you'd call like traditional views on doing things. In all, they tend to want to just rip up the entire rule book and try to read. They think they can reinvent the wheel, so to speak, and I think that's another problem as well with these people. But it also highlights as well. In my opinion, again, and I've no evidence to back this up, and I'm just going purely off my gut feeling, but a lot of these not Hamas, sorry, these Palestine protesters and these sorts of people that are engaged in this, yeah, they might be British citizens, yeah, they might never have been to the Middle East, and yeah, they might never have met a radical person themselves, but they're definitely being guided by foreign forces, whether that be Hezbollah, Hamas, possibly even the Iranian state itself. And to be clear, by the way, guys, I have nothing personal against the Iranian state. I don't particularly like them either. I don't agree with the way they do things, but they're in their country. Leave them alone. That's my personal opinion. We've already made enough trouble in the Middle East and caused enough problems. The entire bloody mass immigration that's coming into Europe at the moment is because of our adventures in the Middle East. Specifically Libya, actually. Everybody was celebrating at the time when we took out Gaddafi. Well, guess what? He was the reason why we weren't being flooded by multiple millions of immigrants every year. So there you go. That's bitten us in the arse, isn't it? But the more the point I'm saying is, though, guys, is these sorts of things of foreign agents operating within our shores under the guise of like charities and protest groups, blah blah blah. It's nothing new. This goes all the way back to the Soviet era. The Soviet Union used to, they used to fund activists. They used to fund charities. They used to fund various activist university lecturers. and lawyers, all these different things that, these people that we consider problems in our society, a lot of it comes back from the Soviet Union and that era. And Iran is a sort of holdover of the Soviet Union, and the Shahs there got into power because of the Soviet Union, and they were all Soviet trained. A lot of those people had received Soviet Union training, so it's no surprise that they would then be still using Soviet era tactics against us in the form of groups like these Palestine liberation groups and all that. It's just a continuation of that crap basically. But for some reason, our hierarchy and our leadership just seems to be completely oblivious to this, or think it's a ridiculous idea. Like they think as the Berlin Wall came down, that was the end of that sort of history, and that we didn't have to worry about that stuff anymore. It's crazy. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Have a nice weekend. Thank you. Goodbye.